to the cloud. Okay. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the webinar. I have our first and guest and rock star is Mr. Matt Wagner. He is the owner and founder of Radio and Television Experts. So if you haven't heard of that, Matt obviously has built one of the best organizations and groups in the real estate space, bringing a collective of the top agents around the country that work with him and his team to, you know, really generate some of the best quality leads through advertising in a multitude of different ways. And Matt, obviously you can speak to that.
Yeah.
Sweet, we have a child on. That's awesome. And then our other guest is Ryan Young. Ryan is one of, runs the number one real estate team in all of Ohio out of the a couple different markets, and has been building an amazing business, and obviously works with Matt as well. And I appreciate you both for being on, because we're gonna be able to talk through this topic today, which is super exciting. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. So why don't we start, Matt, quickly, just, before we get into the nitty gritty, talk a little bit about how you and Ryan have worked together, and then the capacity of that. And then from there, we're going to dive into the tech stack and system automation conversation.
I like Ryan telling the story better, but when I met him, he was a lean, green, selling machine. But now his dad was in real estate and I knew of his dad through Bob Corcoran coaching. And then when I met Ryan, just upstart, hungry guy that was really just willing to learn and fearless, because of, Cleveland's not cheap, I mean, in terms of media. And so it took a little bit of money to help push forward, but Ryan was courageous, did it, and just, went to masterminds, learned from other people around him. It's really interesting when you meet people that are around people that make more money than they do. Some people just fold their arms and start rationalizing or justifying themselves, or they're like Ryan and go, what are you doing? How are you doing it? How can I learn from that? Right. And then they start implementing it. And so to watch that growth, it's so encouraging to watch, because it's because of humble implementation. And he's a good example of that. So it's been fun watching that whole evolution, and just really, really proud of where he's come today and how much he's achieved now, running a couple companies and expanding around the country. And I'm just glad I can say that I knew him when.
Well, just real quick, I appreciate that. They're, one of the things that kind of led us to just plug Matt and Radio and Television Experts is in just, some of the other people that were extremely influential and kind of helping us grow. The technology, the scale isn't important until you have the opportunities there, right? Like, you don't really need to scale anything until you're just over inundated with opportunities, and all of a sudden efficiency becomes extremely important. When you start looking at conversion on massive, more macro kind of conversions and stuff like that, a 1%, a 2%, a 0.5% change in trajectory changes outcomes in revenue and profit significantly. So we didn't have that problem until we started working with them, Matt, where all of a sudden we had an influx of opportunities. And, on top of the young team, where this all became really important was I was fortunate enough, we started an iBuyer. We just closed on a large venture capital round. And when you bring in VC money, the whole point of that is to grow very quick. And so when you're in a high growth company, all of a sudden, a lot of the platforms that we've introduced that have also been instrumental to the growth of the young team, it has really come down to like strong technology foundation and strong scale foundation and stuff like that. And so one of the things that I'm kind of excited about is how a lot of the things with my other company, it's called Flash House, how that really influenced some of the things that the young team has started to implement. And it's really started to help the young team scale a lot quicker. And I think a lot of times we think of ourselves as small business owners, as realtors, as team leaders, stuff like that. I sometimes don't think we think of what we do as a scalable, high growth kind of business. And I think you're starting to see, and we're not even there yet at the young team, but I think you're starting to see some disruptors in the residential real estate space that are growing these really large organizations. A lot of them are in the rate group. And, the only way to do it without really your team members wanting to kill you, in my opinion, is with scale and with efficiency and with using technology and leveraging these platforms that are out there that you see large corporations using. And so that's where Scott was super helpful with us from an integration standpoint, helping us build out. But that's kind of our mindset now. That's the way we look at every pain point, is how does technology overcome this pain point and how do we scale it?
Yeah, I think, so I think it's really important to talk a little bit about the landscape of what most teams or real estate agents or team owners have done or experienced, like you experienced, right? So talk a little bit about your life of your tech stack and systems before, last fall when we started on this journey. Talk a little bit about that led you to where you are, right? And led you to kind of having that realization of what you're doing with Flash House and how that kind of started to bleed, in a sense, into your young team business and understanding what you needed to do differently.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably us, like everyone else, who's is that Jared? There you go. I think some that's just like a lot of other teams. We had your traditional CRM, and we've used everyone. We've had Boomtown and Commissions Inc. and Firepoint and Brivity and all these other. It's like every year we were looking for the newest feature, and we just kept jumping ships. We were also a really heavy like spreadsheet, Google Sheets, Excel kind of team. So we were running our entire business off of Excel spreadsheets, which is not scalable. And we realized that. I think the place where we realized it the most was our director of operations was on maternity leave for like 3 months, and our organization basically like shut down from a reporting standpoint. And that was like a major eye opener of like, this is not an efficient way to scale a business. And, we'll sell probably 650, 700 homes this year. And it's like, you have someone that is ultimately an integral piece of our reporting, and all of a sudden they're gone for 3 months. And we're really proud that we could offer her that type of maternity policy. But when it impacts all of our reporting, everything, we realize that we need a much more efficient process. And so it was like kind of the perfect opportunity to say, let's identify what the architecture looks like and start actually building to complete scale, where it doesn't matter if anyone leaves, we have complete efficiency throughout.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really big deal, right? And understanding that, I think that gave you great insight, right? So let's talk a little bit about, one of the things, and just jump back to you, Matt, one of the things that I think, before we get into the specifics really quick about the particular tech stack and the automation, what we did and what you're doing to scale and maximize your growth. Matt, talk a little bit about like the reality of what a group that Ryan's part of allows, the mastermind mindset of the culture that you've built, which, Ryan's been able to be a part of, I think allows you kind of to open your eyes a little bit more as an entrepreneur to see like, who I need to be working with or what I need to be doing in order to really scale and grow my business. So talk to that a little bit about, because I think it's really important to have that kind of foundation understanding of the group that Ryan's a part of and what he's been able to get access to, not only through his peers, but the other businesses that you bring into that culture,
No, I appreciate that. That's about the longest question I think I've ever been asked.
Yeah.
But no, I think what happens sometimes is that we get kind of in our own little bubble, like our own little market, and we only associate with people in that own little town, and they don't think bigger. right? And they're not going to encourage you to think bigger and grow your business. So until you get out and go to different networking functions, do you ever really begin to see what's out there, what's possible? And I think that that's when you go to a mastermind in a big group. I mean, and it's funny, I didn't even think of that when I first started this. I just was a media buyer that helped people jump on radio and TV and do it the right way. Didn't realize how when you get really smart minds together that all have that common bond, what starts to happen? Well, as they grow and explore other things, then they share those things with other people and they begin, wow, I never thought of that. Like, it's been right in front of me. And I think the freeness comes from the exclusivity in the marketplace, right? Because, Ryan comes to an event, he's not worried about what his competition from Cleveland is hearing at the same table. He doesn't worry about that. So all he has to focus on is, what's this guy doing? What's that guy doing? And, and I think and I learned this early on in going to conferences, the best people hang out at the bar. You could tell who's doing the most business by who's at the bar after midnight, right? Talking shop, right? Because they're all trading. Am I right, Ryan? Is that?
There's been a lot of great conversations after midnight.
Because they're serious, right? I mean, they invest their time and energy to be there. So that's where the best conversations happen. So that's, I think, I don't know if that answers your question, Scott, but
it does. I mean, and that's why we're here today, right? Is to share this culture and this and the opportunities and where Ryan's at. A lot of it comes from being in that type of that type of mastermind, right? So, and here we are sharing information with people that may not have heard some of this stuff. So Ryan,
what's just to add to that, what's the coolest thing about that mastermind? And I'm super bummed. My daughter's 1-year-old birthday is literally like this upcoming, it's April 26th, and it's like literally right at the upcoming rate mastermind. So couldn't convince the wife to skip out for a day or two to be there. But it's like, to Matt's point, the coolest thing about those are you'll have people that have been in the group or that have been in the industry for 25 years and they're still sitting front row taking notes. And like, it doesn't matter. It's like ego. There is no ego in the building. It's like, it's a bunch of top producers. Like, there is no ego. Everyone's just a top producer. Everyone's just trying to grow. Everyone's trying to learn from everyone else. And it's like, it's one of those things. I think it's extremely powerful. And I think that our industry could take a lot from seeing the way those people interact in that room. You have some of the biggest realtors all over the entire country, and yet everyone is still there sharing and listening and learning. And I think that's that's rare.
Yeah. So just real quick housekeeping item. If you have questions, start loading them into the chat because we're going to have time to answer all the questions towards the end of the hour. But right now, obviously I met Ryan through this group, right? Of course, and that's why we're here. But so Ryan, let's start talking about the stack and the automation and what you did last fall. And let's go through kind of the start of it and where you're at today and what results you're seeing with the efficiency and some of the things you were talking about.
Yeah, I think the biggest for us, the biggest implementation was HubSpot. We were using HubSpot within our other company, and so it was just I had a taste of what a fully scalable, customizable platform CRM could look like. There's a lot of people in the rate group that also use Salesforce. I would say Salesforce and HubSpot are probably the two kind of like, if you are serious about making this type of commitment, those are probably the two options. There's a couple others, but like the thing that we acknowledged was, if we're going to do this, we're going to make a large investment of both money and time. We wanted to bring in some experts on what this could look like, what the opportunity could be. And that's where we engaged with Scott. The other just thing to our tech stack that I think has been extremely beneficial is, and if you kind of think of a progression of like the growth of a company, is a platform called Rippling. And Rippling is a fully scalable HR platform. And so when you think of the progression of like, you need to onboard team members and you need, from an HR management standpoint, which I think in more residential real estate, there is very little attention to HR. Maybe some people's operations managers kind of run that side, but there's very little like HR departments. So we've kind of have this nice progression of like HR management and platform, which starts with applicant tracking system, which then filters into HR management, which then filters them into HubSpot. And HubSpot manages everything from our marketing, our sales automation, our operational automation. So we have this like this almost flywheel of like, if you think of a business that just keeps spinning around and growing, we basically feel like between Rippling and HubSpot, we have everything covered. You can gather or extract information from those two platforms. And as we continue to grow, we don't feel any more pressure on our team or on our people because these systems were built to support it.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? To have all the automation. And so let's talk a little bit about, so you have HubSpot, Rippling, what other systems that complete your tech stack?
So ironically, that's we have some stuff that we use like a Lucid chart Figma type of like for more like storyboarding, wireframing, stuff like that. Obviously we have like a QuickBooks like kind of financial platform. And I will say the young team hasn't moved over to it yet, but Flash House did. There's a financial platform called Ramp that is unbelievable. And once again, it integrates with HubSpot and Rippling. You'll see the consistency is we don't use it unless there's integration. And I think to kind of like plug like what Scott does, in the past, historically, we've used so many platforms that none of them talk to each other. And so many things just slip through the cracks. We will not introduce something unless there is like seamless integration, or it can be integrated through, a real sync type of company. They have to be able to work together, because I can literally press one button from an employee or an applicant comes into our platform. I can press one button and it literally moves them through the entire process into every platform with every workflow and automation that we built out. The biggest burnout that I've seen in our organization is through our team members. When we bring on a new person, or as we grow, a lot of times it's more of a burden to our team members versus being exciting that we're growing. We have identified ways that ultimately, and we're continuing to build this out. It's an ongoing work in progress, but we're identifying ways where it doesn't become a burden anymore, where the team gets excited about growth versus it being like more work on everyone's plate.
So talk a little bit about that process and what it was like pre HubSpot and pre all this automation and workflows that have been set up and having that all in one place. And then what's different, more specifically, like efficiency wise, like time wise, like some of those things, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like what we did was, if you start from the beginning, we basically identified and it was a long process, and it was very there were multiple sittings, and then we'd all break and then get together again a week later, and then break and then get together. We basically, from an architecture standpoint, we identified every one of our pain points, all of our wants, and all of our needs. So it's like, it would be cool if ... Well, some of those things are still in the roadmap for Q3 or Q4 of this year. It would be necessary if ... And those things have already been implemented. They're what's called, it's one of those things, like we really wanted to make sure, like from an architecture, like foundational standpoint, we had a very clear plan and vision of what we were building. So we actually spent probably a couple months, if not longer, really identifying what was important to us. And then we started building from there. What we didn't want to do was start building and then realize we missed something. I think you will see, and Scott can attest to this, a lot of this stuff is a massive lift, right? And it's also extremely, it's expensive. And so what we didn't want to do was burn money or time by building out part of our architecture that didn't take into account something 6 months from now or a year from now. So we almost overbuilt the machine, understanding that we would grow into it. But it's been so much more worth it that way. Yeah.
Like, so talk to that a little bit, because the reality is now, like with with the start of this project last year, when you guys went on this journey of transitioning, you put together like a process or foundation of a way to continue to add new ideas and projects. And now it's much, it seems to me at least, you know, outside in, it's a much easier process for you to then continue to build on this roadmap and this foundation of, because you already have this system in place of how to go about creating these ideas and putting these projects into place to where you can get them accomplished. Right?
Yeah, there was a lot of intentionality behind that. Once again, I think the biggest, the best advice I can give to someone that's about to embark in this journey of building out a platform like this is identify your pain points. The only way we ever add things is the majority of times we only add things is based off of pain points. This isn't scalable. This is clunky. Here's a process that just doesn't work with the rest of our organization. Here's a process that's a burden to our team members. Great. Let's assess it and identify how we can apply technology to it, so that ultimately it becomes a scalable process. Everything is the majority of times there's a lot of friction. How can we remove that friction? And the majority of times it's creating workflows and automation to adding to our platform.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, obviously the recruiting was one of the things that we wanted to discuss today, specifically with the automation and the scalability. Talk a little bit about like what that process was like before, how long it took, how, like why it was a burden on some of your current team members compared to now.
Yeah, I mean, before it was just a manual lift. Everything was just like, hey, we want to recruit people. Let's just pick up the phone. Let's just start calling them. One of the nice things about HubSpot is from a marketing standpoint, right? We identify who we want to attract, how we want to attract them. Are we marketing to them through retargeting, through social, through email marketing, whatever it may be? And then we can actually look at the analytics. So if you were to use a Constant Contact or a MailChimp or something like that, well, that's great. But those, once again, are their own separate platforms. If you can bring it all into one platform, you can start to look at the analytics. If you were to think of something like almost like lead scoring, right, where you are identifying who is the most likely opportunity that you're going to transact with or that you're going to recruit or whatever it is. If you can extract that information, then you can invest more energy into the highest opportunities. So HubSpot and our platform from a marketing standpoint allows us to actually identify who's the best candidates that are engaging with our outreach, right? Which allows us to just really get way more efficient with who we're communicating with, the frequency of the communication. It's just been huge.
So wait, you're telling me there's a lead type other than buyer or seller that you can add into HubSpot?
That's exactly right. And that was part of our journey, like that we kind of talked about was how are we categorizing and, whether it's tagging or how are we categorizing, whether it's evangelists, whether it's customers, whether it's prospects, in what pipelines do they fall into? We have this, if you look at like a Kanban board of like, the progression of a life cycle or pipeline, essentially, we can actually see people progressing through each stage of the pipeline. And then we can get analytics, how long they sat in each stage, which once again, the more data we have, the more efficient we can be with where we invest our money and time.
Yeah, it's amazing. So specifically now, when you plug a new, let's just say a new, buyer agent into your system, talk a little bit about how quickly you can get them up to speed to where like all they're focused on is starting to produce.
Yeah, so that's probably our biggest lift right now. It's not fully there. Rippling helps from a team member standpoint of the actual orientation and onboarding. Probably one of the things that we're investing in heavily is training and onboarding. We have an unbelievable gentleman, Nathan, who's owning that department. And if we were going to add another platform, it would be like an LMS based platform that ultimately makes it completely scalable. What's crazy is even without the LMS right now, we're still at what I would consider as like a 30-day kind of like where we feel really confident that they can be up and running and that they're going to start actually selling properties. A lot of that has to do with just the organization and the scale of the Rippling implementation, then moving them to the HubSpot platform where they can actually see analytics and reporting for what our organization is doing. And I think when you get thrown into that, you know, you got to think of what most realtors, what their mindset is, what they're coming from. And when all of a sudden you get thrown into like dashboards and information and there's a lot of transparency in what your team is doing. And all of a sudden it almost forces them to expedite their orientation or onboarding process. It doesn't allow them to stray away. I think for us as an organization though, that is probably our biggest opportunity that we're most excited about right now. When you apply the philosophies that we've kind of seen with HR management and with CRM management and stuff like that. And if you can apply those philosophies to the training and onboarding as well, it's kind of the last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because I mean, the reality is, man, you can set up pipelines and automation to be sending training to your agents as they onboard, right? And like, you can't do that with other CRMs.
No.
Just can't do it.
No.
You can't do it. It's a whole separate workflow, right? That gets automated. So it's you know.
And just real quick, I think that's the key is the philosophy. Like when all of a sudden when you start to expand your mind to what that skill, like exactly how that just like you just said, oh, you could just do, right? When you start thinking about that for every pain point, you could just do ... whatever that is, right? Like that's where we've kind of taken it as an organization because we've started to see the ease and simplicity of what automation does. And it's like now whenever there's a pain point, it's what workflow, what automation can we put in place that eliminates or makes that pain point easier? And that's a very dangerous mindset in a good way that, in my opinion, not a lot of other agents around the country are. You know, you see it in big businesses, but it's like, how do we go from agents to being business owners? And how do you go from business owner to being high growth business? You got to introduce that type of efficiency. Otherwise, it's just too clunky.
Yeah. And I just, you know, from working with real estate business owners for like the last decade, you know, it's hard to think like that when you're stuck in a box and you know, and you don't have that flexibility, right? And so that's the reality is you don't know what you're missing because you've never been able to really think like that because you don't have that flexibility, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And once you get a taste of it, everything else starts to move slow and everything else seems to be a burden. Like we're integrating, like we still have stuff on Excel spreadsheets. It's not all there yet, right? Like we're kind of running side-by-side comparisons, making sure everything's looking good. The manual input, it's like mind-blowing how much time we spend. If you think about everything we're doing manually, it becomes, it's like, it's one of those things that just opens your eyes up to how much time is being left on the table and how much opportunity is being left on the table when you start to get a taste of the other side.
Yeah. So is there anything else, because, you know, we're, this is about the length of time we wanted to go before we started to take some questions, guys. Ryan, is there anything else that when you think about this process now and where you're going that you think's like super insightful, or that you want to, discuss when it comes to like this automation and workflow?
I think two things. I think first off, to Matt's point, surround yourself with people that ultimately you want to learn from and that are willing to share and then give back by sharing with others. When we were building out HubSpot, we found like 3 or 4 other teams, big teams around the country that were using it, that allowed us to kind of gather some information from them and mastermind with them a little bit, which now we're excited to pour back in as other people make the transition to a platform like this. How can we help them just like others helped us? And then the other thing I would say is one of the values of like the automation and scalable process is we are in such like market volatility today is like a real thing, right? And it's like the information and accessibility to information and like very dynamic information is extremely important. You need to understand trends and you need to understand what your business is doing almost daily, because of just what the world is doing with, there's so many things going on, global economy and inflation and hyperinflation and supply issues and so on and so forth, right? Every day it seems like if you turn on the news, there's like a new massive story. How accessible to information is your business providing you, or is that something that like you don't have the bandwidth to be able to access that at the snap of a finger? And one of the things that was really important for us was we wanted to be able to make sure that we had dynamic information and very relevant information every time we wanted to find it. And so anytime there's something that happens in our business, everything updates instantaneously. When a listing goes under contract, everything updates instantaneously. All the agents get notified that a property went under contract. When a new market comes, when someone turns in a new listing, all of our agents get notified that a new listing just got turned in. Well, in a somewhat competitive market, how valuable is it as an agent on our team, which is once again a huge recruiting magnet, to get a notification that said, we just listed this house in this price point. Here's the listing agent, reach out to them for more questions. Everything is moving so fast these days. You're going to be so far behind. If you're trying to do things manually, you just won't be able to keep up with the speed of the world. And so I think that's been like really important for us to realize. And it's made a huge difference in the way we're looking at our potential growth as a team, where we are now and where we'll be in years from now.
Yeah, it's amazing and huge insight. So everyone that's on, basically everyone's muted right now, right? What I'd like you to do is we want to keep this orderly where we're not all trying to talk over each other all at one time. But if you have a question, just make a note in the chat really quick, and then we can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. That way we kind of do it in order. We don't do it all at once. So if anyone has a question, maybe just quickly make a note or raise your hand in the chat there, and then we can and then you can ask your question.
I'd ask a question in terms of scale up, because I know that Ryan has scaled considerably the last several years. And I've heard the expression too floating around our circles that everything works if you get around the right people that are implementing properly, right, and using it the right way. What do you think you did, Ryan, in your growth that helped Scott's systems work so well for you that you could have actually made a bad mistake if you wouldn't have done it the right way?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, people, right? Like, so we have the machines didn't build themselves. And we basically have made a commitment to certain people like Scott, Andre in our organization. We have someone that like literally is working in HubSpot and continuing to build it and grow it. Like literally we've made that investment in a person that is like working on it every day. And then also we had some people in our organization that really weren't didn't understand this type of scale and growth. And we started to surround them with people like Scott. So we brought in outside help to say, don't just build this for us, but teach us how to build it. Right. And so like, I thought that was really important. And we still sit on calls where we basically have a weekly standing where we can essentially like go on and use it as more of training and education versus just outsourcing everything to say, just build this for us. We want to understand why it does what it does. And it wasn't just me, or it wasn't just our HubSpot administrator. It was multiple leaders in our organization. And so like, one of the things that's really cool is, and at first I think they looked at it as a chore, but now I think they understand the value of it, is we really made it a collaborative process with the leaders in the organization to all understand and make a commitment to why we're building this and how do we continue to think about the growth of this versus just saying like, with a normal CRM, it's just like, hey guys, here's our new CRM. This is what we're going to use. Just learn how to use it. We had to take kind of a different approach with the leaders of saying like, you guys need to understand this. You need to understand how to work in it. You need to understand how to build it. You need to think bigger than what we currently have. It took a little bit of time. It required me really painting a very big picture of what the opportunity looked like. At first, everyone kind of looked at it as a major burden, but once they started to see it, and it helps that they saw it from my other company, they all got bought in. And once they got bought in, then everyone was investing the hours, and that's made a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. And you know, Ryan, stepping back, like I think, you know, to give you credit too, I saw you grow tremendously through the process as well, because, you know, it was almost a blessing in disguise that your main operations person was out on maternity leave, because you had to step in, and it forced you to have to be in there too, to understand what you were doing, and not, you know, because, you know, the reality is you probably would have delegated a lot of it to
100%.
Yeah.
But Scott can attest, like, I mean, we had calls. What are you? Just kidding. Boycotted vodka.
Oh, it's about to get really interesting now.
Yeah. No, there's good Polish vodka.
Yeah, Polish vodka. Scott can attest. I mean, we had calls. We had literally weekly standing calls, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, hour-long calls, and it was project management, and it was just consistent with all the leaders in our organization. It was a lot of hours committed. I mean, when you have 3 hours a week just for project management, for all of us to get together and say, going over, this is what I'm working on. What's the progression of this? How's this coming along? When you have that type of leadership hours committed, you know, that's 15 hours of 18 hours of leadership hours committed every week just to those one call. That's how important it was. And to Scott's point, at first I was kind of planning on delegating more of it. But then I realized we're investing so much into this and how important it is to our organization. I needed to understand like the mechanics of it and what we were doing and why we were doing it, because now I can go in and build reports and dashboards and not have to call someone and ask them to do it for me. I can create automation and workflows. I'm still not as, you know, smooth as others, but it's like I can muscle through a lot of it. When I need information and I need it now, and I need it to be completely up to date, I can extract that information. I know how to get it.
Yeah. All right. Who else has got questions? Anyone? Just unmute yourself.
Scott Shine, I know you've got questions.
Yeah, we can see you, Scott.
You help your mom run an amazing team in Texas.
So many questions, so little time. No, I don't have any right now.
Cool.
It's pretty I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff. It's you know, I remember when I first looked into Salesforce like 5-6 years ago, and I was just like so perplexed on people that actually use like a system like that or HubSpot. You have to be fully committed to, it's a long-term play. Like you have to be fully committed, and you have to make sure that you allocate financially someone to like constantly be looking at it every day. I think it should not be taken for granted when coming in. If you just think you're going to build this yourself, it's like, you got to get with Scott's company, and you got to get some help from the pros that do this every day. And they've seen how teams like ours are leveraging it. It's one of those things, like it's a massive lift, and you have to know what you're getting yourself into. Otherwise, I could see people just throwing their hands up and being like, costs too much, it's taking forever. We're still not where it wants to be. This CRM is already so much better. It's like the CRMs, when we first started, were way better than ours because they're real estate CRMs. They're out of the box. Now we've gotten to a point where we can completely customize our entire business and automation and workflows. We've far surpassed any other CRM for us that works for us because of the investment of time and money we put in. And it's like, there's several points throughout the process where we just threw up our hands and we were like, it would just be so much easier if we just use an out of the box CRM. But now we're so glad that we made that investment.
Yeah. So we do have one question from Heidi. She asked to hear the additional pieces in your tech stack.
Yeah. What's cool is, I mean, we really don't have much else. They're, because of the value that HubSpot provides, and with Rippling, I mean, if you think about it, Rippling literally gets our team members onboarded. It gets, with like basically a couple clicks of a button, sends out their offer letter. From there, it basically gets them completely uploaded into HubSpot, and they're ready to go. And then HubSpot almost does everything else. We still use Dotloop, which Scott's team created a nice integration. Anytime a new deal is created, you move it into a pipeline, it automatically creates and auto populates everything in the Dotloop form, so it's ready to go. That's really it, though.
And
I mean,
Showcase
oh, we
IDX.
still use Showcase IDX, which is our IDX. That's a good call. That was a heavy lift. Showcase IDX integrates into HubSpot. Another reason why we did it. Showcase IDX, we still use Showing Time. Right now, we currently do not have Showing Time integrated through HubSpot. I don't even know if that's a possibility. If it is, that's something we would want to do. Once again, you think of just looking at, I just want to kind of paint a picture. If you're representing a seller and you have to go to Showing Time to extract information about analytics, and then you have to go back into your CRM versus bringing it all together. Just think about how powerful it would be to create an automation where every 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is, something automatically goes out to the seller with you essentially being in control of that process versus through a third party. So that could be something that we look into. It's not a big enough pain point for us yet, but that could be a nice integration that would bring Showing Time in.
Yeah, I'd have to look. I'm not sure, but we probably could do that. We're in the process of refactoring our API too to make it a lot easier for other applications to connect to us. So
yeah,
so the lift isn't going to be as extreme either.
Yeah,
for us, which is good. It means it's more cost efficient for everybody.
Yeah.
So Heidi keeps asking questions, which is great. She also asked what other stuff is still stuck in your spreadsheets.
Right now, the only thing that we still have everything in spreadsheets that's running side by side to our HubSpot reporting. We'll do that till the end of Q2, and then we'll pull it off. We're just making sure that everything is coming in completely accurate. There is a little bit of, fear. What if all of a sudden you're relying completely on a system? What if something doesn't work? One of the nice things about HubSpot is it's so easy to diagnose because everything is deal-based or contact-based. You can identify if there's an error or something's not working just by literally clicking into the opportunity or into the reporting and seeing what's off, which is pretty fun. But we really don't really need any spreadsheets anymore. It's literally, from a reporting standpoint, it's all there. That is by far one of the most refreshing things, by the way. We used to have everything from marketing attribution to our sales tracker, to our agent tracker, to our media summary, to all these things that were on spreadsheets. And it's like literally everything was manually inputted. It kills so many hours of manual input with HubSpot.
Yeah. Anyone else on the call that wants to ask or has a question or wants to ask a question?
What would you say?
Go ahead.
I'll just throw it out there. If there's steps, I mean, obviously, Ryan, you're flying at a higher level than now than you might have been a year ago, 2 years ago. If someone's scaling up, what advice would you give them?
I would say building out that system architecture and foundational architecture can be done on a piece of paper. It can be done in a Google sheet. It can be done. It does not have to be this. You don't have to be like technologically savvy to identify like what could make your business stronger, right? And the way we kind of look at it is like when you think of pressure testing, where does the system or the machine break down at a certain point in scale, right? And so like I would draw all your pain points, and then I would start saying, well, how would this work if we added 10 agents tomorrow? How would this work if we added 20 deals tomorrow? How would this work if we added 20 listings, 50 listings? And you just keep taking it, pressure testing it, where it's like, at that point, my team would literally burst into flames. Everyone would kill me. we wouldn't be able to do it, right? So then you start identifying kind of those points where it's like, all right, at this point, we just wouldn't be able to scale any further. We would completely break down. All right, what would be a solution to that? How can we make sure we're prepared for that? And I think, like, to Scott's point, like, it's two sides. I think it's our job, it's our responsibility as business owners. Recruiting is one piece, retention is one piece, and then obviously the other side is our sales and production business. So it's like, where do each of those start to break down when you add on top of, big scale, big growth? Like, some of the teams in rate, right? They're selling, we're going to sell 700 homes this year or whatever it is. They're going to sell 1,700. There are some systems right now that we currently have in place that we would not be able to absorb that much business, that many listings. We're pretty close. We feel pretty good about it, but there are some things that we would have to add into the fold that would allow us to scale that much further. That's kind of where we are at in the process now of like, all right, let's look at this 5 years down the road. What does our roadmap look like? Does our systems and architecture and foundation support that? And that's just literally writing it down on a piece of paper. Biggest pain points. What are things that are requiring a lot of effort? What is things that are really inefficient or clunky? I think that's a great place to start.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'd reiterate what you said earlier in the webinar, Ryan, about if you're adding a new system to your tech stack and you don't know if it has robust integration or you can't integrate it, I would really think twice about adding that system.
100%.
Because you're just putting more data and manual entry on an island that you have to keep going in and out of and exporting whatever data you need to out of there. And it's just not worth it long term for scale.
And that 100%, that was also influential in us choosing HubSpot as a platform from an integration standpoint, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce. They probably have the two most, when you look at like an app marketplace or, from an integration standpoint, these are being used by Fortune 500 companies, and they're scaling way bigger than all of us. It's like a lot of them have the majority of integrations that we need. Now, there are some niche integrations that apply more to residential real estate where you get with a Scott where they can build out custom integrations. But for the most part, when looking at scale, a HubSpot Salesforce predominantly integrates with everything that you would need to integrate into your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, does anyone else have any specific questions for Ryan or Matt just about, what we've discussed today? Ryan, I really don't have, I feel like we've kind of talked, obviously, a lot about this particular process and if someone wanted to kind of see some specifics about what you've built with HubSpot, would you be open to?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. I can show them reporting. I can show them automation. I can show them what it looks like. I can also get them with team members that are more granular in certain areas of it and what that looks like. Marketing, has a lot of information gathered. Our reporting has a lot of information gathered. And once again, this is multiple iterations from where we started and what we thought it was going to be, and it's going to continue to be that way. So this is not like let me show you what we've built and like good luck. It's more like, let me show you what we built and I'll show you where it is in 3 months from now, because it's going to be different and it's going to evolve. And what are you building? What have you experienced? What have you seen that has solved pain points? Let's kind of as a community come together and talk about how we can all help each other be way more efficient. The last thing I'll say, this is like, not like conspiracy theory or anything like that, but like I'm kind of playing on another side with, venture capital and stuff like that. The reason why there's so much venture capital flowing into prop tech and into the real estate space is because they see it as a major disruptable industry, because they're using all of this scale and technology at a $1 billion level. And they realize that us as realtors, as small business owners, don't have accessibility or the bandwidth, or, we're not comfortable making the financial investment into it. And so they're looking at it as a major opportunity to disrupt. And I think that's something that if we all need to kind of stick together, and the more we can share with what scale looks like, and as we can continue to build these organizations, the better fighting chance we have.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you think about if you're doing business right, real estate has some of the highest profit margins of any business industry in the world, right? So it makes sense why these big, these big funds are trying to get involved, because they want their cut, because there's a lot of money to be had in real estate, right? So you got to be able to be looking ahead and looking and doing things like Ryan's doing here. And then real quick, I'll mention, and I'll put it in the chat. If you need help, like Ryan was talking about, mapping out this, this outlook of your business and what it looks like from a tech standpoint, it's literally what we do. It's literally what I do on calls, right? So if you need the help to kind of have a consult when it comes to your technology and what that could look like, this is, basically what I did with Ryan. He had a vision, and I was able to kind of understand his ideas and find the right people in other businesses to come in and help, help execute on this vision he had. Right. So same thing for you. If you need help, let us know, and just go to freetechconsult.com and you can jump on a call with me.
I love it.
And then as far as we put a link to Matt's email. If any of you want to learn more about what Matt does, I highly recommend it. If you don't know who Matt Wagner is, you should certainly talk to him and his team. Because if you, Ryan, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but if you want to be known within your market, Matt's the person to get you known. That's for sure.
Game changer.
Yeah. So, Matt, you have anything else you want to?
Thanks for doing this. Thanks for going deep. I know how busy you are, and for you to carve out this time is giving of you, which I appreciate. And Scott, thanks for organizing this. You got that right. That's why I love back in the days when you were with Viral, and now with what you're running there. You're always looking to bring value to the agent community and teaching, learning from others, which I appreciate you being willing to do that. Anyone that learns from Scott's not just learning from you, they're learning from all these other agents that are good implementers, and you bring that to the table. And likewise to you guys, if you guys take time with Scott, he's got a wealth of knowledge of not just this, but so many other things that top realtors are doing, and it'll be a quality phone call.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, Matt. If no one has any other questions, we nailed the hour. Cool. 2 minutes on it. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for spending time with us. We hope you get value, and we look forward to doing more webinars, whether it's with Matt, Ryan, other people. RealSync's going to keep trying to bring value with the technology and automation aspect of your business, because that's where we sit and that's where we fit. Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Scott.